Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the C-Man Cinema Sit-Down. Do I need to tell you? I mean, we're rocking the Obi Road, man. Like, it's only one thing that we could possibly be talking about, and at least for the time being, it's the last time we're going to get to talk about this one. So let's not waste any time. Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into Obi Wan Kenobi Part 6, also known as the Obi Wan Kenobi finale. And I tell you, man, from the grand scheme of the Star Wars universe, and when you kind of step back and you just look at what Obi Wan Kenobi brings to the world of Star Wars, adds to the stories, enhances the stories that we already know, I think this show is a massive success for Lucasfilm and for Star Wars. It's one of these things, at least, you know, I think people in my age range and generation that grew up with those prequels, like, we've all hoped and wanted an Obi-Wan show. And simply because you want to bring Ewan McGregor and, you know, Hayden Christensen back into this world at a time when they would be embraced and loved in a way that they didn't get during the prequels. And that's exactly what the show does, man. Like, it brings these guys back. It brings them back into the fold where it seems like they're both hungry and that they want to do more with these characters. And that's super exciting. And, you know, the show's not perfect. You know, I think there are things like Riva's character where you could have tweaked certain elements and really enhanced that character and that story, even though I think Moses Ingram does wonderful work all season. You know, there are things that could have been written better for that character, but when it comes to the Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Darth Vader stuff, the stuff that we're here for, this show for me is almost always on fire. I mean, I don't think there was a single time where I was ever disappointed with what we were getting from Hayden Christensen in Vader's suit and Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. Like, those two guys crushed it all season, and I think the story that we get to tell, how that enhances and expands their relationship, how it, you know, positions itself to enhance things from A New Hope, like, it's really cool, and I'm really happy that this show exists. Now, as far as the finale goes, this is my favorite episode of the season. I've been waiting all season for this episode, and it delivers in all the ways that you want it to. Are there things in this episode that I have issues with? Yes, and it really stems right out from the end of last week, where it was like, okay, for me personally, Riva has served her purpose, and then they leave her alive. And coming out of last week's episode, I was a little nervous about what we were going to get with that character and how that story would play into this finale. And I won't lie, I do think there are elements of that story that, you know, the motivations still don't really work for me. And it's something that I don't necessarily, or wasn't something that I necessarily needed in the finale. And I kind of wish we would have wrapped that story up last week. Now, that being said, we do get a couple really cool moments because her story is still involved in what's going on. So, like, it's one of these where, like, personally, I could do without I'm fine with Riva and what she does in this show up till the end of last week. I don't really think I needed her here, but at least as a consolation, I guess you could say, there's some cool stuff that, like, I never thought about it or thought that you would see, and it was kind of cool to see. Now, that stuff aside, the things that we're here for, Obi-Wan and Anakin, you know, while I think episode 1 is still the overall best written episode, and I think the pop of what Vader does when he shows up in 3 still is probably the biggest pop, this episode is the perfect amalgamation and combination of those things. The story and the writing for Obi-Wan and Vader. And like I said, what it does for their story here, what it does for these two actors in particular, and their story extending out from the prequels, and how it kind of elevates things for A New Hope in the relationship that we get a glimpse of there, is just really, really exquisite stuff. And whether you like things with Riva or dislike other things with the show, I think what you can 100% say is that Joby Harold and his writing team understand this world, understand canon, right? Like, I think a lot of people were worried, and, pretty much what Joby Harold said, let the show finish, everything will be where it needs to be. You know what I mean? And I think they understand that stuff, and they understand how to use that stuff to enhance things. And yeah, you're not going to always hit every episode out of the ballpark. You're not going to nail every single thing in the course of a season, or at least in the course of a season that's 6 episodes long and the episodes aren't an hour in length, right? I mean, I think something like Stranger Things, yeah, you can knock out pretty much every episode out of the ballpark. But when you're given what we're given here, I think there's so much more good than there isn't that I really enjoyed what we got from Harold and his team, and I would like to see more from him, and I 100% want to see more from Deborah Chow. Give this woman anything that is action-oriented in Star Wars, especially lightsaber-oriented. Goodness me, man. I mean, this, like, we've seen what she's been doing behind the camera all season. We've been seeing what she's been doing with the lightsabers the last couple episodes. What she does in this episode, it's some of the most beautiful Obi-Wan and Anakin / Vader things you could put on screen. And mild spoilers, we're the show has been building to one final encounter, and that encounter delivers in such big ways, and the choreography, the ideas that go into it, and just the joy you get. My friend Britt, who will be around this week and involved with our spoiler discussions and reactions, was saying to me, like, these are two guys, like, you watch them on the screen and you can just tell they love to play lightsabers. You know what I mean? And that stuff is unbelievable, and the performances are unbelievable. I wasn't full, like, rolling tears. I don't know what it was. I was, like, emotionally kind of blocked or something this morning, but I certainly had the tears welling up, and there are some wonderful emotional moments in this episode that really, really pay off. And I think, like I said, this show was building to these two guys being face to face with each other. And when the show is doing that stuff, it is spectacular. Every time these two guys are on opposite sides of each other, you're getting really great stuff. And it's one of those things where, like, you just kind of sit here and you get to the end of this season and you're like, I really want to see more for Obi-Wan, and I want to see more for Vader. And while their stories might not cross paths again until you get to A New Hope, I think there are worthwhile stories worth telling to keep these two guys involved, especially because it certainly seems, I mean, I know Ewan McGregor has for sure said it, and it's certainly the vibe I get from Hayden, that they want to be around and they want to do more. So I hope that we get more for both of them, because what we got here was great. And if Deborah Chow or Joby Harold are involved in either of those things, yes, I'm here for that, because I think those two characters and their position in the world of Star Wars, what they mean and how they're utilized, are something that those two absolutely nail. As far as the other things that are going on in this episode, like I said, it's really a lot of those two. Riva's storyline, with what was set up, takes you where you need to be taken. And the episode, I think, does a good job of handling, how you wrap up specifically Leia's story, because it's been so prominent and so, front and center during the course of this season. But also Luke, we see where Riva's left off last week, and bringing us into Tatooine and to the Lars household, you get some good stuff. And there's overall, where you bring those characters and their families and where they kind of end up by the end of the season, right? Like, it's like doing a spoiler or non-spoiler review, but like talking like, hey, nobody died, because we know where all these characters end up, but like how they position those characters and utilize them here, while much smaller, right? Because I told you, like, the focus is Obi-Wan and Vader. you do get good stuff that I think works really well, specifically in closing out Leia's story and giving us a little bit of a Luke story and some moments there. So overall, man, like I really loved this episode. It's what this season was building to, and it's I think what people were hoping for from the minute the show was announced. So let's get the old cmaniacs up, and I tell you, it's one of those things where it's nice when one of the strongest or like your favorite episode is the finale. And while I think episode 1 is, probably the best written episode, episode 3 probably has the biggest pop moment. I mean, the Vader appearance and then what he does to Obi-Wan, like those moments are massive. But you take the combination of those things and put it into this episode with those two characters, we get wonderful pop moments, we get wonderful just story and character moments for both of them, we get phenomenal action. I mean, it feels like it's some of the best stuff that we've seen from these two guys. And look, while it's not, I mean, that Mustafar lightsaber sequence is one of my all-time favorites, and while it's not that all the time, you get flashes of it, and then you get to see these other creative ways in which these two guys can go at it, and everything that the season builds with being able to fight without a lightsaber and what you can do with a lightsaber and getting into, someone's head and the use of the Force and things around you like that. Like, it all just comes to a perfect peak and a perfect finale in that regard. Yes, there's some stuff with Riva that, this is not the best. You could have done better, I think. But this show was about this guy. And his story is phenomenal. The performance from Ewan McGregor, stellar all season. And the best, I think, of his performance comes in this episode. Same thing with Vader and Anakin and what we get from Hayden. Like, he's not on the poster, but, like, he was a massive part of this show. He was always a massive piece, and he delivers. And again, I think everything that he's built towards as a character and as an actor, getting to this episode, like if this was the one they shot last, it really feels like these two guys were building and they were peaking at the right moment. So for me, I gotta go 5 out of 5 cmaniacs, man. This was, especially when Marvel and Disney have not been money all the time on their finales. Like, I think sometimes you get a lot of good things. Moon Knight is a perfect example, but it was drastically undercut by the length. You got, it wasn't an hour, it wasn't 90 minutes, but it was about 50, and it took its time, and it did what it needed to do, and it really delivered. I think, as just an overall fan of these characters and what I was looking for out of the show, this gave me exactly what I wanted, and it found ways to surprise me. Like, it kept some surprises in play. It threw things where I was like, oh, shoot, I wasn't thinking about that, and that was really awesome. And it's a beautiful show. Like, when you look at what Deborah Chow does behind the camera, like, this thing is just wonderful to look at. The visual effects are phenomenal. The score and the music, while it wasn't, necessarily, I wouldn't say like peak Star Wars, like the moments that need it, it's there to help drive it. And I think this is a show where I think the visuals and the action stuff that's going on the screen a lot of times kind of overshadows the score. I think the score works really well here. It amplifies those moments that you want it to. It gave me more of the vibe of what it was doing those first couple episodes, where it was like you could drastically tone shift from the score. I think you get a little bit more of that and stuff that just really builds these moments to feel epic. And it's all I could ask for from Obi Wan Kenobi. So, Obi Wan Kenobi, Season 1, we don't know if there's a Season 2 coming. We know Ewan wants to do more. I think we all hope he can do more. And what's cool, like, with the way you're telling Star Wars stories and the fact that the timeline exists already, and you're kind of just playing on both ends of it, really, it provides you opportunities where you don't have to pick up where this left off for either of these characters. We could go back and you could give me an Obi-Wan Anakin adventure, that could add to that story. You could just give me a solo Obi-Wan story that picks up from here, or a solo Vader show that picks up from here, or something that's backwards but different for each guy. Like, there's plenty of stories I think out there, and I really hope that we get an opportunity to see these guys reprise these roles, because they're bringing some of their best. So I couldn't be more happy with Obi Wan Kenobi, and I'm really excited for anything that is coming out of the world of Star Wars with Dave Filoni and Chief Creative Officer role. Like, if it's coming out with him overseeing everything, stuff is beautiful. So that's it, man. That's all C-Man's got to say about Obi Wan Kenobi. I really enjoyed this season. This finale hit in a big way for me. I've said what I got to say without spoiling anything. Now it's your turn. What are you guys thinking, man? What did the season do for you? How did you think it played out? Was it satisfying? Was this conclusion satisfying? How did the finale play in the context of the 6 episodes that we got this season? How did you feel about the Riva stuff? Could you have done with or without it? Could you have done it in a way that maybe would have made it feel like it added more to this type of a finale? What do you think the show did, and specifically this episode did, for Obi-Wan and Anakin / Vader? What was working? Keep it spoiler free. Good, bad, indifferent. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Part 6, down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you do, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer reactions, you want to be here for my Obi-Wan Kenobi finale reactions with my friend Britt, all of our spoiler thoughts. You wanted to show a little love and support because you dig what we're doing over here, and you haven't yet, well then hey, come join CManiac Nation simply by jumping over there, hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. So until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, Obi-Wan Kenobi in the books, I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace!
Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.